Wish I got to meet so many wonderful young kids, young girls dressed up as Snow White. It really, mi corazón está llena de amor. I am so overflowing with love.
I'm just going to be honest. I really don't like Rachel Zegler as an actress. And truthfully, I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. Over the past year, studios have started to realize something important. Casting her isn't just risky anymore. It might actually hurt their box office numbers. Think about that. A few years ago, she was being praised as Hollywood's next big thing. Now people are actively avoiding her movies. Heading into this year, I had absolutely zero interest in seeing anything she was in. And if you disagree, that's fine. Go ahead and unfollow. I don't need support from people who can't see what's happening right in front of them. Here's the thing, she wasn't even supposed to be there that night. Rachel Zegler wasn't scheduled, she wasn't invited, she wasn't even on the event list. But that didn't stop her from showing up anyway, walking in like she still belonged. Fans were waiting outside asking, "Rachel, can you sign an autograph for us on the way out?" Totally unaware of the chaos happening behind the curtain. And this appearance came just weeks after she had been removed from the Evita production, something insiders later described as a full-blown cast rebellion. In other words, the people working with her had enough. They didn't want her there. But still, she appeared at the theater quietly, secretly, acting like nothing had ever happened. And what happened next? That's where everything really spiraled. Rachel Zegler began receiving waves of criticism. And no, it's not because of her background or who she is. It's because in almost every interview, she comes across as unprepared, inexperienced, and even dismissive of the characters she's supposed to represent. It's like she doesn't understand the weight of the roles she's given. That's strange, isn't it? This is someone who's already won a Golden Globe. You'd think she'd have some self-awareness, some sense of what professionalism looks like. When she landed that big role and realized she wasn't right for it, the mature thing to do would have been to step back. Let someone else take the spotlight. Someone who actually respected and loved the character. But instead, she held onto it for dear life. And then came the story that shocked everyone backstage. Multiple people claimed that Rachel was caught spying on a closed rehearsal. Not from the audience seats, not from backstage. No, she was literally standing near the side curtain, hidden in the shadows, watching her replacement perform "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," as if the role still belonged to her. Imagine that. Standing there quietly, staring at someone else doing your part after being asked to leave the production. It wasn't just awkward. It was unsettling. It made everyone realize how unwilling she was to let go. That moment changed everything. It's hard to imagine any major studio taking a gamble on her again. This entire situation is going to follow her wherever she goes. Every meeting, every audition, every opportunity. Picture it. She walks into a casting call for a major movie, all smiles, ready to impress. But the director looks up, recognizes her face, and says, "Wait, weren't you part of that Evita disaster?" A pause, a smirk, then a simple, "Yeah, no thanks, next." And just like that, another door closes. At this point, it's hard not to think that Rachel Zegler has become her own worst enemy. She didn't just make a few bad choices, she managed to turn every opportunity into a controversy. Every interview becomes a headline. Every project becomes a debate. And that night, when the cast saw her unexpectedly appear at the theater, everything erupted into chaos. Shouting, confusion, disbelief. People couldn't believe she actually showed up. It was the moment everyone realized that one of Hollywood's most promising stars had fallen from grace. Not because of bad luck, but because she simply couldn't get out of her own way. The shouting started before anyone even realized what was happening. Accusations flew across the room. Someone reportedly yelled, "You're not welcome here!" And Rachel, instead of walking away, shot back without hesitation. "This role was mine before it was yours." The room went silent for half a second and then chaos. Security was called in. Rehearsals stopped cold. What was supposed to be a normal evening suddenly turned into a public spectacle. And yeah, I get it. A lot of people rushed to defend her, saying, "She's just a young woman. Give her a break." But here's the thing, no one's blaming her for being young. People are blaming her for not being professional. She was given an incredible opportunity, and she fumbled it. Still, the internet has a way of taking every mistake and turning it into entertainment. For some reason, tearing into Rachel Zegler became a sport. One small scandal turned into a feeding frenzy, and what should have been a quiet rehearsal became another viral meltdown. But the real question still lingers. Why was she even there? Was it obsession? Was it ego? Or was it something deeper? Something we don't fully understand? Because if you think the Rachel Zegler drama is over, think again. She once admitted in an old interview, "It's lonely, really lonely. And maybe that's the truth behind it all." If loneliness can drive someone to show up where they no longer belong, maybe it can also drive them to seek redemption. She said she'd be okay. And maybe she believed it. At the start, Evita was supposed to be her comeback story. Cast as Eva Peron in London's prestigious West End. A fresh start, a second chance to rebuild her image. The media couldn't get enough of it. Entertainment sites called it her redemption arc. Social media lit up with excitement. Fans were tweeting things like, "Rachel Zegler is going to slay this role," and "Diva energy incoming. I can't wait to see her shine again." For a brief moment, it felt like she was back, like Hollywood had forgiven her. But behind the curtain, the story was completely different. Rehearsals reportedly descended into chaos. Rachel clashed with the directors, ignored choreography, and even started rewriting her own blocking, changing entire sequences without approval. Co-stars claimed she treated them like backup dancers in the Rachel Zegler show. What was supposed to be a collaborative musical quickly began to feel like a one-woman performance, and not in a good way. According to one insider, it stopped feeling like theater. It started feeling like we were being held hostage. Then came the rebellion. Half the cast had reportedly had enough. A secret meeting took place, followed by a signed letter delivered straight to the producers. The message was simple and brutal. It's her or us. That's when the panic began. The producers, blindsided, scrambled for a way out. Officially, they announced that Rachel was being temporarily suspended from the production. But everyone knew what that really meant. She was out. Almost overnight, she disappeared from rehearsals. Marketing materials were quietly updated. Posters were redesigned. Her face was removed from promo banners. Then, without ceremony, a new actress was announced to take over the role. There was no press release, no farewell statement, just silence. Fans online split into two camps. Some were furious, saying Rachel deserved better. Others admitted they were relieved, claiming the atmosphere had become toxic and tense. And while all of that unfolded, the internet went into full investigation mode. YouTube breakdowns, TikTok theories, Twitter threads, everyone wanted a piece of the drama. People started calling her a narcissist, a diva, a nightmare to work with. Clips of old interviews resurfaced, twisted out of context to fit the new narrative. Suddenly, she wasn't a rising star anymore. She was a cautionary tale. What few seemed to notice, though, was the emotional toll this had to be taking on her. She's still young, still learning, and suddenly she's become the internet's favorite villain. Overnight, her name was everywhere. Rachel Zegler kicked out of her own show. Evita now without the drama. Every gossip site treated it like an ongoing TV series, with new episodes dropping daily. Theater blogs posted backstage leaks. Fan accounts uploaded timeline recaps. It was chaos, and she was right at the center of it. And through it all, Rachel said nothing. No tweets, no Instagram stories, no interviews, just silence. Days turned into weeks, and her social media stayed completely blank. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement. It was as if the whole thing never happened. But silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes silence is the only weapon left when the world won't stop talking. As we're about to see, Rachel Zegler wasn't done with Evita. Not even close. Whatever people thought about her being removed, she clearly didn't see it as the end. She even acknowledged it herself in a resurfaced interview clip. "I know this video will get taken out of context. It always does. That's just what my online presence is now. Constantly misinterpreted. But I guess that's what I signed up for." In the theater world, they call it radio silence. After her alleged removal from Evita, Rachel completely vanished from public view. No statements, no tweets, no subtle likes, no cryptic Instagram stories, nothing. It was as if she had ghosted the entire situation. To outsiders, it looked like she'd walked away, quietly and gracefully, choosing not to fuel the controversy any further. But behind the curtain, things were far more complicated. Rachel hadn't let go at all. In an older quote, she once said, "I never wanted to seem like I'm ungrateful. I know how lucky I am, but this has been the biggest adjustment of my life. Just learning how to live as the person I've become in this industry. And maybe that's what makes what happened next so haunting." And maybe that's what makes what happened next so haunting.
those YouTubers who's like,
I'm working on something, but I can't tell you.
But I'm working on something and I can't tell you. And it should come out in a couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half.
Because according to multiple anonymous insiders close to the production, Rachel remained fixated on Evita even after she was sidelined. They say she kept reaching out to crew members, asking for behind-the-scenes updates, who was performing her old scenes, which musical numbers were being reworked, what new choices were being made. It started as curiosity, but soon it crossed a line. One dancer reportedly claimed that Rachel showed up outside their apartment unannounced, just to talk things through. Another producer claimed to have seen her car parked across the street from the theater 2 days in a row. At first, people brushed it off. Maybe she was just emotional, maybe she was trying to find closure. After all, being replaced in a role you loved isn't easy. But then things started getting strange. A costume assistant allegedly spotted a familiar silhouette near the side stage loading dock late one night, someone watching quietly before slipping away. Others whispered that Rachel had tried to re-enter the building through a service entrance and was turned away by staff. One source even claimed she contacted the new lead's vocal coach, asking for notes on how they were adjusting her old role. It became clear she couldn't accept being out. She's not just upset, one cast member reportedly said. She's still living the part. Eva Peron isn't just a role to her anymore. It's who she thinks she is. Meanwhile, her name was disappearing from the marketing materials. Posters, digital ads, press kits, all quietly edited. But fans began noticing something odd. Rachel unfollowed several Evita cast members on Instagram. A few accounts posted and then deleted cryptic captions about someone still watching from the wings. Theatergoers swore they'd seen someone who looked exactly like Rachel sitting in the back rows during late-night rehearsals. At first, it was all gossip, speculation, and rumor, until it wasn't, because what happened next wasn't whispered in private. It wasn't a tweet or an anonymous tip. It was loud, visible, and witnessed by everyone in the building. Rachel Zegler didn't just watch from a distance anymore. She walked back in. It was supposed to be a normal afternoon at the theater. The cast had just wrapped vocal warm-ups. The crew was setting lighting cues. The new lead actress, calm and focused, stepped onto the stage to rehearse the show's most iconic number, "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." And then everything stopped. From the wings, behind a half-drawn curtain, stood someone no one expected to ever see again, Rachel Zegler. According to 3 separate accounts, she had somehow entered the building through a maintenance side entrance usually reserved for security and staff. How she got in remains unclear. Some say she still had an old access badge. Others believe someone sympathetic to her situation quietly buzzed her inside. But one thing's for certain, she didn't end up there by accident. Witnesses describe her standing motionless near the stage edge, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the new lead as she performed "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." It was eerie, like a ghost from the past refusing to leave. Word spread through the theater in seconds. Crew members froze. Stagehands whispered. Dancers exchanged anxious looks. A heavy tension filled the air, thick and electric, like the entire building was holding its breath. Rachel Zegler had returned, not for a performance, not for redemption, but for something else entirely. Whispers rippled through the cast. A dancer leaned over and asked, "Is that Rachel?" Another muttered, "She's back. Why?" Then came the confrontation. The new Evita lead reportedly froze midline when she spotted Rachel standing just off stage. One crew member later described the silence as so heavy, you could hear a pin drop. And then someone snapped. A supporting cast member turned sharply and shouted, "You're not supposed to be here!" But Rachel didn't flinch. Calmly, allegedly without raising her voice, she replied, "I'm just watching. I created this. That was it. That was the breaking point." Stagehands rushed to alert production. 2 more followed, trying to intervene. But Rachel refused to leave. "I just want to see how it's going," she reportedly said. Then, turning toward the new lead, she muttered, "Let's see if you can actually handle it." Chaos erupted instantly. Lines were forgotten. Rehearsal ground to a halt. Several cast members stormed off the stage, demanding she be removed immediately. Security was called, and this time it wasn't some whispered backstage drama. Rachel Zegler had officially crossed the line. She was no longer controversial. She was completely unwelcome. When security finally confronted her, the situation reportedly worsened. Theater staff attempted to calm her down, to ease her out quietly. But Rachel wasn't having it. According to insiders, she snapped, "I gave everything to this role. You can't erase me." The new Evita lead, still in full costume, reportedly fired back calmly, refusing to be intimidated. But that didn't stop Rachel from continuing her tirade. Multiple witnesses said the cast and crew gathered around, unsure whether to intervene or stay clear of the storm. One backstage worker described it as a full-blown reality show meltdown, except no one was acting. Rachel reportedly refused to leave. She repeated that the role had been stolen from her, that she deserved answers, and that anyone who had turned on her would regret it. Some witnesses even claimed she tried to walk towards center stage but was physically blocked by crew members. The breaking point came when a senior producer approached, attempting to de-escalate the situation professionally. But Rachel, eyes red and voice trembling, reportedly said, "This show was nothing until I made it something." A chorus of cast members shouted back in unison, "And it's better without you!" The words echoed down the hall like thunder, shattering any remaining illusion she had about reclaiming her spotlight. Security escorted her out the same side door she had used to sneak in. No applause, no final bow, just silence, and the sound of the door locking behind her. Word of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, cast members were messaging friends. Theaters across the city buzzed with gossip. Screenshots of alleged DMs and blurry photos of Rachel near the wings surfaced on fan accounts and Reddit threads. It was official. Rachel Zegler wasn't just replaced, she had become the villain of her own comeback story. The fallout didn't stop there. Within 24 hours, Evita's production office reportedly went into full lockdown. Staff were instructed not to speak to the press. Cast members were reminded that their contracts included strict NDAs. Security was heightened. Keycard access was reset. Cameras at all entrances were reviewed. But the damage had already been done. An anonymous crew member revealed that producers were furious, not just over the security breach, but because Rachel's presence had disrupted a critical run-through only days before previews were set to begin. The new lead, who had remained calm until that point, was reportedly shaken. Legal advisors were allegedly consulted. Rumors circulated that the team was exploring a restraining order, not out of fear, but to preserve order. Another report suggested Rachel could be blacklisted from future collaborations with the company. Even her past supporters began to distance themselves. A cast member who had once defended her quietly deleted all photos with her. Another reposted a meme of the Evita cast celebrating, captioned, "It's peaceful now." Meanwhile, tabloids speculated on unauthorized access, disruption of professional operations, and even potential breach of contract. Rachel Zegler's uninvited return had not only ended in chaos, it had set off a chain reaction that would reverberate through the theater world for weeks, maybe months. And for anyone watching, it was impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a full-blown production meltdown, with Rachel at its center. Even after the public confrontation, the story didn't end. In fact, it escalated in ways no one expected. One anonymous entertainment lawyer suggested that if Rachel still had access to the theater building after her termination, the producers could have strong grounds for legal action, possibly even civil penalties. Meanwhile, Rachel's team remained completely silent. No statements, no PR push. No attempts to spin the narrative in her favor. And that silence, intentional or not, only made the situation worse. Fans who had once defended her began switching sides almost immediately. Hashtags like Dongjiva Unbothered and Hans Evita Reborn began trending across Twitter and Instagram, reflecting a dramatic shift in public opinion. The narrative had flipped completely. Rachel Zegler was no longer the misunderstood artist fighting to reclaim a role she loved. She had become the storm the cast had barely survived. As the curtain finally rose on the new version of Evita, the question on everyone's mind was the same. What would Rachel Zegler do next? And the moment the story hit social media, it exploded with unprecedented speed. Within minutes of the first leaked post detailing her backstage appearance, the internet lit up in a frenzy. TikTok videos broke down every detail, every angle, and every theory. Reddit timelines meticulously compiled photos, messages, and rumors. Fan accounts collected every hint, every cryptic comment, every possible sign that Rachel was still somehow entwined with the production. The hashtag #CaughtByTheCurtain trended for hours, drawing thousands of reactions, some sympathetic, many brutal. One viral tweet read, "Imagine being kicked out of a group project and still showing up to the presentation." Another quipped, "Rachel Zegler has officially entered her 'I'm not in the play, but I'm watching from the parking lot' era." Not everyone laughed. Hardcore fans argued that she was being unfairly villainized, insisting she had every right to care about a show she had helped shape. One defended her passionately, saying, "They stole her role and gaslit her out of existence." But those few voices were quickly drowned out beneath the relentless wave of memes, call-outs, and speculation. Sharp-eyed users began noticing subtle hints that Rachel might be planning her next move. She quietly started following casting agents, indie filmmakers, and even a few screenwriters. Others saw her liking tweets about unapologetic women reclaiming their space in the industry. Was she signaling a soft comeback? A tell-all interview? A dramatic new project? Then came the bombshell. One of Rachel's close contacts allegedly leaked to a gossip outlet that she had been taking meetings. Not for theater, but for a new dramatic streaming series, reportedly loosely based on a misunderstood female star ousted from Broadway. The timing was uncanny, almost too perfect, almost too on-brand. This sparked an even bigger question. Was Rachel spiraling, or was this all a calculated setup for her next reinvention? Because if there's one thing we know about Rachel Zegler, it's that she doesn't stay down for long. On paper, the situation looked catastrophic. She'd been removed from a major musical, allegedly banned from rehearsals, caught sneaking around her replacement's performances, and escorted out after a public confrontation. Her once loyal fanbase fractured. Memes mocked her relentlessly. Producers distanced themselves. And her silence, complete, absolute silence, only fueled the fire. But here's the twist. Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's a pivot. Rachel Zegler is not just another name on a marquee. She's been called a rising star, a PR mastermind, even a calculated genius. She landed West Side Story off a viral audition video. She built a massive digital following before her first movie even debuted. She has weathered backlash before and still booked major roles. Could this apparent implosion be a carefully staged prelude to a spectacular comeback? Look closer. The timing of her silent exit, combined with the rumors of a streaming series in development, almost feels deliberate. Her refusal to speak keeps everyone guessing. Her disappearance feeds speculation, and speculation fuels engagement. Some industry insiders are even whispering that Rachel may be following the oldest Hollywood playbook: become the villain, be torn apart publicly, go silent, then reemerge remade, wiser, and suddenly more relatable. History shows that audiences love a comeback, a redemption arc, a star rising from the ashes. Imagine 6 months from now, Rachel sits down for an emotional tell-all interview. She opens up about the pressure, the scrutiny, the mental and emotional toll, and she doesn't dodge it. "I made mistakes," she says, "but I never stopped caring." Sympathy, redemption. And next, she stars in a raw, vulnerable indie drama. A misunderstood, cast-aside woman clawing her way back to the center of the stage. Sound familiar? Rachel might be losing headlines today, but that doesn't mean she has lost the war. The question isn't if she'll come back, it's how. Will it be a bold streaming project that flips the narrative? A memoir turning backstage gossip into gold? Or a complete disappearance, only to return like a phoenix from the ashes? One thing is certain. This wasn't the ending Rachel Zegler had in mind, but it might just be the beginning of her boldest, most dramatic performance yet. And if the rumors are true, and cameras are already rolling behind the scenes, perhaps we aren't watching her downfall at all. Maybe we're watching the birth of her next act, her origin story as a force to be reckoned with. Buckle up. Whether you love her, hate her, or simply can't look away, Rachel Zegler isn't done. Not even close. Not even close.